Hello everyone, it's the Nitty Professor here with my son, and we're going to talk about Nick's boots. So tell me about how you got a hold of these.
It was about 4 years ago on a boot shopping exploration trip in Spokane. I was very into a lot of Red Wing boots at the time. I probably had at least 2 pairs of Red Wings, but I wanted a more substantial work boot. And I felt like Nick's at the time seemed like the cream of the crop. And at the time, JK was still fairly young. They've become
Kind of a fledgling.
They've become more successful and prominent now, it seems, in Spokane. But
you've been putting these to a lot of good use.
That's right. In my current job, I don't really get to wear boots too often, but I've had a few other jobs in the past 4 years where I got a whole lot of use out of these, so they've served me well so far.
Did you, how did you determine this build? Like, is this a specific model?
It was called the Overlander, which I think they still sell, it's kind of just the Builder Pro on the HNW last, which is a lower arch and a shorter height at 8 inches instead of 10. And I'm trying to remember exactly why I chose that one.
So here's a couple of pictures of when we went there. Get my fingers out of the way. Those are some of the models that they had in the back. Is this considered a serious boot?
I think so. It is a serious work boot.
It's serious. Here's some more pictures. Y'all should go to this store. It really is quite the experience. And so it's the Overlander, but 8-inch.
The Overlander is standard in 8 inches, I believe.
Oh, okay.
But it's basically very similar to other work boot models they've got that happen to be 10 inches.
Is this a structured toe?
I opted for a Celastic toe.
Okay.
So it would have a little bit of something in there without having to get a composite toe or a steel toe or something.
Those are the other options. What's the leather?
It's from Seidel. I think it's called Max Support Black. It's a 7 to 8 ounce leather, so it's quite thick. It's been quite durable. I've probably over conditioned it a few times, but it honestly looks like it's ready for some more. And I went for a smooth on the top over a rough out on the bottom, but you can't quite tell anymore because I've conditioned it so much.
Wow.
It kind of, the nap has just been rubbed in with all of the oils that have been put in there.
And you really wanted the blackout look?
I did. I opted for the gunmetal hardware.
Okay.
Which, as you can see, has been, kind of rubbed off over time. That finish is kind of more or less gone. But
and it's got the kilties, I can tell.
It does. I kept those on there.
Yeah.
Broke them in with it and everything.
And does that help you because you have kind of low foot volume?
I do a little bit. I think so anyway. So it added a little bit more something in the top so I don't have to lace them quite so tightly because I've got a pair of Red Wings on a wider last when my feet are already a little bit narrow where the sides of the boot are just touching because of how tightly I have to lace them. So I was able to avoid that with the kiltie on this one.
What do you condition them with?
I've always used Obanoff's, the grease they sell. It's primarily some combination of beeswax.
Yeah.
And what is it called? Propylene, some other waxy compounds in it.
Okay.
And it's done a good job, made them fairly water resistant. Although I probably have soaked them a few times in water. In fact, I have.
Because of rain?
Right. There was one time I had to walk back home. It was like a mile, but I had to go through a little bit of a valley after it had rained, and it must have gotten up to here in water. I completely soaked them, and they had to dry out.
And they held up.
They did.
Yeah. So, and I mean, didn't you have a special sole on here and it kind of wore off like it was?
They actually gave me what they called the Red X soles, commando lug soles, that originally had an X, I believe, on this last lug here that was red, and it designated that it was had like some measure of heat resistance.
Fire rated?
Yes.
Kinda? Yeah.
Which I did not need, but I've read that they make those soles, they come out a little bit harder, less pliable than the standard commando lug soles, but I didn't really notice anything.
They feel grippy.
They are.
Yeah. I mean, I have soles that are a lot less grippy than this. Well, on the IRs, right? The mini lugs.
And you can tell over time how much some of these have lost their depth in here because they've just worn that much.
Didn't you have an issue like when they first came and they had to redo them?
Actually, yeah, they were built incorrectly when I first received them after waiting for like 5 months.
Yeah.
Because I wanted a smooth over rough out style, and they built it with entirely smooth leather. So I had to send them back and ask for them to be rebuilt, which they did at no cost, which is nice. And I think
that's one of their services.
Right. I wanted to get them for Christmas that year, but they ended up coming in, I think, like early January.
Okay.
And then we sent them back, and they kind of put it at the top of their priority list to rebuild it and bring it back to me. And that was in, I don't know, maybe February.
I think it was February.
Something like that.
Yeah, it's been about like 4 years maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so here's a picture of you getting sized. What was that experience like?
I thought I would walk in and try on the boot I wanted.
Yeah.
But they gave me a boot that had the same last, and had me try on a few different sizes to see what my ultimate size would be on that last.
Were you surprised at the size that they ended up with?
No, it's there at the store that I learned my true size on the Brannock scale, which is a 12B, and I ended up opting for a 12C in this last. And in retrospect, I probably could have gone down a half size to an 11.5C,
Really?
or even a B, and been able to break it in just fine. Because I do have a little bit more toe room in here than I really need, but it hasn't made it any less comfortable or less useful. So they still worked out.
Yeah.
Over time.
How long did it take to break them in?
A while. They recommend around 100 hours of wear. That was what they told me at the time, like 80 to 100 or so hours of wear before you can flex them more. Because I remember when I first put them on and I tried to, just get down on the balls of my feet, and instead of the boot moving, the boot moves you, and you move forward when you're trying to bend down because it's not that flexible yet. But since then, I've been able to, break them in enough that I can, sit on the balls of my feet like that. And you can tell just from the natural sort of curve of them and how these folds have come in that, I've done a lot of gotten a lot of use out of them. So.
How many miles do you think you've put on them?
Gosh, I don't know.
Thousands?
But the second longest walk I ever did, because when I was in college, I just took a lot of long walks in my free time, getting to know my area. I walked very nearly a half marathon worth of distance in these boots over, 5-6 hours with a meal in the middle. And they were fine. They were great. It was
no comfort issues.
It was on pavement on a bit of a rainy day. In a colder day, it was like 40 or 45 degrees. I just wore decent socks, and they were fine. They were great, very comfortable.
Do you ever see yourself getting Knicks again?
Maybe another model. I might be more interested in a wedge sole model.
Okay.
I'm interested in I think it's the 11067 last, which is a little bit narrower. I think it would accommodate my foot in particular better than this HNW last. It also has a more pronounced arch, which I think would also help me out. So I would change a few things. Not that I would change anything in particular about this boot, but I would get another style.
Yeah,
something
just
else, more variety. Yeah.
Right.
Something that has some of a different sort of perhaps use case that these boots might be best put toward,
Yeah.
Yeah. At the time, I was also interested in the Traveler model, which was a wedge sole model that was honestly on the same last. Really, all the models aren't that different besides a few different, changes, like this has a different last, a different sole, because a lot of them have the same, construction of the upper, and probably wear similarly ultimately, as long as it's the right size. So
yeah, this heel construction is kind of interesting. The way that upside down V shape stitching. And we got to watch them actually do some work on making boots. That was kind of cool too.
We could peek in through the window.
Yeah.
At the craftspeople. It was nice.
It's kind of a special store to go to. And they have a lot of good care products.
And a lot of good advice.
I remember there was a family in there, I think they were from Texas, because they were like, yeah, we want the best boots. So we came all the way from Texas to Spokane to get sized and get the right thing. Yeah. I think since then, don't they have more like off-the-shelf models that you can buy?
Yeah, they do.
It seems like they're trying to...
I think they've put a little bit more effort toward, I don't know what they call it, more of a ready-made boot you can just order and get in a couple weeks instead of one that they construct for you like they did with this one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's cool. They're changing up their business model a little bit. Is there anything else you think people should know about Knicks boots as far as the desirability and the... where they fit into the whole heritage boot sort of scheme. Would you consider this strictly heritage boot, or is it more of a work boot kind of slash?
It's properly a work boot.
Yeah.
It fits in that world that we like to occupy of heritage boots and fine leather goods and everything. But it's of a certain caliber that, honestly, most people, even I was in this group, we don't need, really. I could have gotten, another pair of boots that served a similar purpose and don't have to be as, honestly, kind of overbuilt as this boot is. Because I'm not, like I say, I don't have a job that demands this kind of footwear. So I don't think we're really the kind of clientele that some of these serious work boot brands cater to best, But
like
I don't
JK.
regret, right, and White's and even Frank's boots, but I don't regret owning them, and I've gotten a lot of use out of them. I can tell they're ready for a whole lot more.
Looks like it.
And they show some scars of their wear over time.
What's the biggest scar?
One that sticks out to me, I can't remember which boot it is. I think it's on the one you're holding here. I've got, I was working in a department store trying to get this metal sort of stand underneath this pallet of goods that would display the price, and under this heavy pallet I was trying to shove this metal tiny little plate underneath. So I was just banging on it with my foot, because you can just, I feel like you can kick anything with these on. Your feet are almost indestructible. And I put some kind of deep marks into the side of the along this edge here.
Oh, sure enough.
You can I'm not sure if you can make them out quite so well
that's
on camera.
What you have boots for. I mean, you
All
say
of
it's
these
overbuilt and
etchings.
stuff, but if you had done that with a pair of Nikes,
Yeah, I would just chew them up. And it kind of chewed this up a little bit, but it survived, and it still works. It's still functional. So.
Yeah.
And you can tell there's some other wear, the top lift on the heel is kind of starting to separate a little bit on the bottom. It hasn't come off at all or anything, but just all kinds of scars, especially along the footbed here.
That's good. That's what we want. I'm a big fan of patinas. My viewers know, so.
But they have lasted, and they've got some more to go.
Yeah, obviously. Especially, I mean, you could get them resold, right?
And they're really not even close to needing resoling, in my opinion.
No, I don't think so. They're going to last even longer than my grandpa's motorcycle boots lasted, I think.
So despite the fact that this sewing, this thread has obviously been worn through completely, but it's still
But they're screwed on, so I mean, come on, right? It doesn't need anything more than that.
Right, it's still stuck on there real good.
Yeah, they're going to last forever. Awesome. Well, appreciate your spending time with my subs talking about these great boots. I don't know, at some point I might get some Nicks. I'm kind of interested in the Roberts, like the true heritage lines that they have. They do have some models that I think I would consider.
And I've been interested in the Americana boot.
The Americana, that's another one.
It's kind of like their version of the Iron Ranger, I would say. It's got a nice cap toe, and it's just like a beefed up Iron Ranger almost.
I think we need to go back to Spokane.
Yeah, at some point.
All right, I think that's a great conclusion. So y'all have a Merry Christmas, and we'll be back soon. Take care.